Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Gaming the System, the podcast where three intersectional feminists examine gaming and games through a feminist lens. Today, I'm your host, Alex, and I'm joined by Jem. Before we get started, if you want to support us, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gaming the system for some exclusive content. Or you can send us a one-off donation via PayPal to our email address wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com. So in terms of a format, do you think that social deduction works best as a video game or in a board game setting or as something you can watch on TV? It's a tricky question.
But, I don't think I would want to choose which it works best as, because I think it works really well for all of those settings, and it has a completely different experience as the person consuming it. You know, if you're watching it, then you're kind of like the omnipresent, like God creature, and you get to be look down and be like, oh, but they don't know that they're doing that, and I think there are some things, like I was saying that I would like to have seen in Traitors. I would like to see a secret traitor who is selected secretly, and the audience don't know and the other traitors don't know, but maybe they know who the traitors are, but they don't, but they're not allowed to tell, or something, just to throw something into the mix, because I think
I've spoken to are saying we shouldn't know, the audience shouldn't know who the traitors are.
Well, yeah. But I like that we know. I like that we're there, able to see the whole thing unfold.
Maybe a couple of episodes, or like one episode.
Yeah, maybe. You could have
because I think it would help appreciate like how difficult it must be when you don't know, because it's very easy sitting at home watching it saying, "Oh, it's obvious, can't you see?"
Yeah.
But I think it would be really interesting. But that secret traitor idea is an excellent one. I think that's
maybe I should write to them and copyright my idea. But I mean, did you ever watch The Voice? Which was a TV show, with the where somebody comes on and they see the judges have their back to the stage, and somebody comes on and sings, and it's whether or not they turn around for them. And when that first came out over here, we watched that and I really enjoyed it. And but we often felt like we should have our back to the TV, because sometimes it's really easy to make so many judgments.
Exactly, from your first impression, isn't it? Something like it takes 2 seconds to get an impression of somebody you meet for the first time or something.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
But you do. So that brings us into like the social bias side of things and what's going on in our brains to make us feel a certain way about how someone looks or speaks. It's such a fact. There must be so many essays written on the traitors, I reckon. They'd be absolutely fascinating to read. Do you think that the traitors, since it's become a thing, has made games like it and similar social deduction games, generally more popular? And it's difficult for us to know, really, I suppose. But I feel like it's definitely... I feel like there's a lot of similar games on the market in terms of board games now. There is a Traitors game as a board game and a card game, I think, but it could be a board game as well. Yeah, there's definitely at least one. But I do think that there's probably going to be a bit of a boom.
Absolutely. I think so, especially as it's a good party game. And I think we've seen a sort of increase in popularity of the idea of board gaming, especially with younger generations, because like the is it not millennials, the Gen Z?
Yeah,
the ones below millennials. Anyway, they're like notoriously not drinking. They're not going out and drinking. So I think that there's a
a different way that these people are enjoying their time, and I think it's much more about sort of socializing in small groups, having an activity, whether that's playing crazy golf or throwing axes or doing a murder mystery evening. So I think that or board gaming nights and things, I think there is an increase in that kind of thing. So I definitely think we will see a lot of popularity around those kind of games, certainly this Christmas, I think, and going forward. The problem is that I just feel that, I mean, Among Us is a really fun game, but it also comes down to how quickly can you move around on your screen. How quickly can you move your little character so that it doesn't get caught by the other little characters that are running around. There's it also, because you're playing online with random players sometimes, you've got to you're dealing with people who are or are not taking the game seriously. And I think the same applies for like board games, in that I'm sure there is a traitors board game, but it's probably more in the traditional style of board game, in that you're rolling dice and stuff's happening and you're moving. I mean, I don't know, I haven't looked, so
I think I've played one with cards. It's got cards, and you get dealt cards, and if you've got the traitor card in your hand, you are the traitor.
Then you
I think it can pass around, but it's card based, I think. Yeah.
Oh, well, that would be good. So yeah, because I think that it. I'm really interested in sort of moving away from your traditional board game to sort of group games that you play, and I think that it would be nice to see that happen. So yeah, I do think we will see an increase in these types of games, and I will be interested to see how it's taken going forward.
Definitely. To play a game like The Traitors, do you think you have to be a certain type of person? It kind of brings me on to a question. Do you feel like there are certain types of people that would have more advantage than others hiding things from other people? Or
yeah, I think there are definitely people out there who are better able to lie than others. I do, because I think, that either because they're just really adept at doing it. I mean, I don't particularly like Jonathan Ross, and I'm not surprised that he did as well as he did at being a traitor. I know he was the first one out,
to go out,
but
there were so many weeks where he should have gone out though.
Yes, and he managed to convince people, and he was always really confident in it. And I think that's because he is just probably really good at lying. And I felt like, yes, I thought he was good at what he did. He was good at the game, and I do think he always has been a very adept
speaker,
sort of celebrity host, and all of that, talk show host. But I think that he is probably quite good at lying. I think, and I think the whole idea of the poker face and everything is really valid. Like we've talked about how difficult we would find to not kind of give the game away.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting as well when you think about Kat. She's almost the complete opposite of Jonathan, really, because she stays very quiet and she's very introverted. Didn't really, she spoke just enough, I think, and she almost made it to the end. But the other interesting bit of analysis I was hearing as we got into the latter stages was they'll all have to vote for Kat. Because if they think very carefully about the choices of the producers in 2025, there has to be at least one traitor who is a woman. Which I wondered if they were thinking about that, but maybe weren't allowed to express it. Or maybe it was cut.
I think that was kind of behind the big dog theory, wasn't it? That when they had this idea that
the producers would have pitched Jonathan Ross and Stephen Fry against each other, which they did. Now, I don't know whether that was just coincidence or whether they would, Joe, it was Joe who came up with that idea. And I think he, and I think he was right, but I don't know how intentional it was. But yeah, I think that is the problem, isn't it? When you're dealing with celebrities who know how, and these were all like hardcore celebrities, so they've been in the business for a long time, they know how it works, they know what makes good TV. And I think there was an element of that influencing how they voted. But I do think I really wanted Kat to be in the I wanted Kat to win, and I'm sad that she didn't. But I'm also really sad that there weren't more women in that final session. I think I did wonder about how quickly they got rid of women and the people of color, and it was just there was just something about it.
Can't you? It's so interesting. That was going to be another of my questions. What do you think games like The Traitors expose about bias from others and ourselves as well? And I think that you can definitely, like, even in the non-celebrity versions, it's pretty obvious when people are being othered because they're too loud or they're too quiet, or, for example, there's some pretty ableist things that happened in some of the earlier series. Like there was that lady with the limb difference who didn't raise her glass when everyone else did. She was busy talking to someone else, but like they grouped right on her at the start and said, oh, she didn't toast. Well, there's a reason, because she only had one hand. So, but that was uncomfortable for me, definitely. And then also when they ganged up on the guy who had ADHD and he was getting really overwhelmed, and they were like, oh, he's faking it. And I thought that was really uncomfortable as well. So definitely there have been some uncomfortable moments when you think about how, what do they call it? Is it like herd mentality comes into play, and like grouping and that sort of thing? Groupthink, that's it.
Groupthink is just it's caused so much trouble in human history. I mean, I'm sure about. I'm sure we've talked about it before, but there was a big experiment done, I think, probably back in the 60s or the 50s when they weren't. When nobody cared about the morals of any kind of psychological experiment, where they put people into a prison setup and they randomly assigned people to being prisoners and guards.
And prisoners,
and they looked at what impact it had, and it had a massive impact on people's behavior, and the guards became more aggressive and more abusive, and just generally felt like they were better than the prisoners, and the prisoners became more passive, more withdrawn, more just plotting and all of this, and it was really, really problematic, actually. And it's used as an example of how, firstly, it's used as an example of how these kind of randomly assigned roles can impact how we think about ourselves and other people. But it also is used as an example of why we shouldn't be allowed to just do experiments without looking at, the moral implications, of the ethical implications of what we're doing, and especially to the people that take part in those experiments. But I just kind of had that in the back of my mind when I'm watching these kind of things, and just the way that people assign certain meanings to people's actions in those situations. And I think what I find most uncomfortable about it is the way that people are like, oh, I really like you, but you didn't raise your glass in that thing, or I really like you, you're so much fun, but and it's like, but
if you're going to say this really bad thing about this person, then, you know, what are you actually, what's actually going on here?
Yeah. And it works the other way around as well, when people are like, oh, so-and-so couldn't possibly be a traitor because X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, where is that assumption coming from? You know, that where like people, I think it was like, was it the first series where they had the Welsh lady? The one that lasted for ages and ages, and nobody suspected her because she played mother to a lot of the group, and was like this lovely older Welsh lady, you know. And they were like, oh, it couldn't possibly be her. It's just so interesting.
She's too much like my grandmother.
Yes, yeah. But it is interesting how it kind of works both ways. People can choose to have suspicions about someone, but equally choose to trust someone based on how they appear and how they feel about being with that person.
Yeah. And obviously there are plenty of people who are using those stereotypes to protect themselves. Yes. So they're saying, like, you know, I know everyone's going to, you know, ignore me as long as I go with the crowd. So they go with the crowd, you know, and we make those decisions in our daily lives all the time. You know, this idea that we don't want to get thrown out of the tribe, so we make ourselves useful, and we do what we need to do to be a part of the group, so that we can be protected because there's safety in numbers. And I think, you know, so it's really interesting to watch that kind of psychology being played out in front of you. And it has the feeling of the early days of Big Brother, when you know, they put a random bunch of people in the house, and they always used to have a psychologist come in and talk about, like, you know, why they'd done these things and who'd done that, and this argument that had happened. And it was really interesting because it was before people were playing a system, and, you know, before people were deliberately going in there just to get famous. And it was viewed as a bit of a sort of social experiment. And I found that fascinating because I love psychology, and I love, you know, looking at the way that people think and the way that people behave in these kind of situations. I found that really interesting. And Traitors has got something similar about it that just appeals to me in that way. And I think, you know, that it is interesting to see how people behave when they are assigned a role. And I think, you know, it was like Alan Carr kind of expressed it verbally when he was saying, like, you know, oh, like, started feeling all like nervous, being all uncomfortable about it, but now I'm quite enjoying being a traitor. And he, you know, and he just really, really got a kick out of it. And you could see how it did change the way that he was. And then not necessarily in his soul, but you know, how he was behaving in that situation.
And then also the release at the end, he'd been bottling it all up and he'd hidden it even from us as the audience. He didn't go into the chair room and say, oh, I'm feeling really emotional about it, like other traitors have done in the past. He just gave us that traitor mask. Yep, I'm really loving it. It's great. I'm going to win. Going to do it. And then right at the end, he let all the emotion out, and it was really it was very emotional. We were all crying watching it.
Yeah.
But because I hadn't realised how much it had been weighing on him, how much he had found it difficult lying to the others. Some people might have suggested that it was all crocodile tears, but I think that was genuine.
It was too late. It wasn't necessary for that at that point anyway, because everyone knew it was a game. So he didn't have to do. He had nothing to gain, I think, from pretending to be upset. I think you're right. I think it was a genuine release because he'd been holding himself in order to maintain that poker face,
especially after Pat left as well.
I think he would. I think he genuinely wanted him and Kat to go through together. And I don't, unlike there have been some in the past where they've literally stabbed each other in the back at the end, or not literally, but almost literally. You know, and I don't think that would have happened here. I think he genuinely would have liked to have gone through with Kat. I'm not so sure that Kat wouldn't have stabbed him in the back, but
I'm still
but I rate Kat. I thought she came out of it really well, actually.
Yeah, I didn't know her before I started watching, but yeah, it was really, really good. But yeah, it's so interesting though. I've been thinking a lot about it, but do you think that gender has a role to play in the way that people are either suspecting people of being traitors or choosing to trust people? Does that play out differently when we look at a man versus a woman? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I did actually think that they weren't going to go for Kat on the basis that, well, I thought that Joe wouldn't vote for Kat because Joe comes from a very male-dominated world in the rugby world, and even though he didn't strike me as a particularly chauvinistic person or anything like that. I mean, I'm not saying that, but I thought he would look at Kat and David, and he would have said, I'm going to go with David because Kat is female, is a young female, and therefore she's going to be less of a threat than David.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that he didn't, because he did go with Kat, and that surprised me. But I do think that it probably does have a because we know that we have what's it called? Oh, unconscious bias. We know that unconscious bias is a thing, and it just makes us suspicious of people or supportive of people based on things that our brains aren't necessarily even registering. I mean, it's so inground that it just happens without us meaning it to happen, and it's there. I mean, it's unconscious, so there's not a lot we can do about it other than just to check our thinking often. And so, I do think that happens, this idea that women are less likely to betray you. But then I don't know, because there's also this idea that women are that, like that spider sneaky, just waiting there, isn't it? The sneaky, like Eve, blame it all on Eve. It was all her fault, she's, and so, I do think it has an effect, but it didn't impact it the way that I thought it would. So I held my hands up there to miscalling that one. And so I don't know. I would be really interested in someone doing a research paper on that, so that we could answer that question. What do you think? Do you think?
I think I do feel like at certain points in this latest series, there were times when people were saying things about other celebrities where I was like, well, would they be saying that if it was a male person or a female person? I don't know, because I thought it was really interesting how everyone immediately grouped on Kate Garraway, because she was very over the top and like very loud, and she repeated things people were saying, like maybe they've recruited, in the morning. And then but Claire and was it Claire and who was the other person that Claire was talking to about Kate? I can't remember. But they grouped in on her right away. And I thought, well, where's this come from then? Is there something there from the past maybe? Because they went right in and said, oh, well, she's reacting really over the top to a lot of things. But I guess, like, you've got to pin it on something. And then, of course, Tom was all confused about flabbergasted as well. I thought that was hilarious. Nobody uses that word. Not anymore. But yeah.
I mean, I thought it was interesting with Kate, because I think what she where she kind of got herself in a pickle as far as everyone else was concerned was that they were like, you do these hard-hitting interviews, so you should be more able to kind of like dig in and get to the heart of it, and yet she didn't seem to do that. No, she didn't have the confidence to do that,
to share an opinion, even if she did have one at all. I don't know, it must have been very difficult to really land either way with her, because she wasn't saying one way or another.
But you see, to me, I would have been like, well, that means that she's not, because if you're a traitor, you kind of have to be in there.
You have to sow seeds.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. We could talk about it for ages more, I expect. I know there's an Irish version coming soon. I'm not sure if it's on. Wow. It might be on iPlayer already. I might have a quick look. But it's got the lady who was in Derry Girls playing Sister Mary. She also presents Great Pottery Throwdown, but I can't remember her name. I'm just going to type Irish traitors into Google to verify live on the podcast when it's coming to our screens. Traitors Ireland. When is it on BBC? When on BBC? You see, this is exciting listening. Oh, it's already there. Apparently, it's on BBC Three and iPlayer in November 2025, immediately following the conclusion of Celebrity Traitors.
Oh, wow! Okay.
Exciting. I'm definitely going to watch that to fill in the gap between now and New Year's Day, which is when the next series of non-celebrity traitors will be starting.
Oh, is it? I knew it was 2026. I didn't realise it was New Year's Day.
No, it starts around New Year because that's the darkest, most wintry time of year, and we need something to get through it. I think traditionally that's when they've aired it, which is interesting because most times big programmes come on in the autumn and lead up to Christmas. But they've kind of done that already with Celebrity this year. So I'm very much looking forward to those.
Yeah. So you said you've been watching this season with friends.
Yes.
Were you physically in the same space?
Yes,
or were you watching? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And we also watched slightly delayed for several weeks, so we had to stay away from spoilers, which was very difficult but manageable if you stayed off social media. The trouble was Tom was coming out of work for the one right on the final, and he saw the result in a newspaper, which was really disappointing. You wouldn't think it would be on such a weirdly traditional form of media, but unfortunately he got spoiled for the winner. Nothing else. Did
you know that he knew, or did he keep it quiet until the end?
He told me he'd been spoiled, but he didn't say what the spoiler was.
Oh.
But it was we were doing so well that day, staying off our phones, everything. But it was hard. But it was fun watching with another couple, definitely. Because it's just so enjoyable discussing it all and reacting to it all and everything. It's fun, obviously, with the partner, for example. Like, that's how I would normally watch it anyway. And I think, I don't know how it would be watching it on your own, but I think it's more fun to watch with other people because you can, like, share your theories and what you think's going to happen, or, or how you feel about certain people and things like that. It just makes it more enjoyable to spectate with friends, I think.
Yeah. I mean, but for all of the episodes, all of the series that I've watched, we've been behind, so we've kind of watched it much, and which has been kind of fun, but we haven't. But it means that you can't talk to people about it along the way, or rather, if you do, they already know what's happening next, so it's not, you're not in it together. You're kind of like, and so I think it's it's been an I think there are interesting ways of watching it, but I think watching it with other people definitely is a really positive thing to do.
I remember it was like the episode where there was that massive implosion with the couple Alex and Tom, which ironically is the name of myself and my partner, and it was when Tom absolutely imploded and was like, "Oh, Alex is my girlfriend," and like just let it out because he couldn't deal with it anymore. And she didn't even know that he was going to say it. We spent literally a whole hour after we finished watching discussing it before we could go to sleep because we were so excited about what had happened and the drama of it all and how ridiculous it was. It was so absorbing and so like affecting that we literally spent a whole hour just talking about it after. So yeah, I definitely agree. You do need to watch it with someone to discuss it because it's just too good not to talk about. Yeah.
So if you were playing a game, like one of these games with a friend, and they turned out to be really good at like, you know, bluffing and all of that, would it impact your like ongoing relationship
such an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, it would definitely make you think, well, what's going on with this person? I never knew they were that good at concealing things. You know, I think it would make you maybe think for a second. But if you had a trusting relationship or a close relationship with that person, I think you know in the context that what you're doing is playing a game. So I think I would be inclined to trust that person.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's such an interesting question. How do you feel? What would you feel like?
I think there have been situations where I have sort of, it's just made me think like, oh, actually, you can lie straight faced. I think it's good to be reminded, really, that people have multiple layers, and you know, you never truly know what anyone is thinking or what anyone would do in a situation. And I think, you know, like it is just a game, but it's also, as we were saying earlier, it draws on skills that you have or don't have. And so, yeah, I think it would definitely make me question them. It probably wouldn't stop me being friends with them.
No, good.
But I have to, my husband was involved with the Women's Equality Party decision to close down. And so that was like a year ago now, and he was and I knew he was on in the group that was doing that, and they basically brought him in because they wanted people who didn't necessarily have like a big emotional attachment to it but were members. So he was doing that, and he didn't tell me. I didn't find out about it until it was until the public email came out, and I was like, oh my gosh, how did you keep that from me? Because obviously I was quite heavily involved in the Women's Equality Party, and I knew a lot of people that were involved in the Women's Equality Party. So I mean, you know, it's what got us, you know, started. But and I was a bit kind of like, oh, okay. And his point was like, well, I was told not to say, so I didn't say. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay. But make of that what you will. I think it sometimes brings out interesting sides of people, these kind of situations.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Jem, for covering a wide-ranging topic there. I've really had fun chatting about it today, and I hope listeners and watchers have enjoyed it also. Share your favourite social deduction games with us if you'd like to, and share this podcast with your friends. We always love new listeners and watchers and subscribers as well. Give us lots of lovely ratings if you've enjoyed, and we'll be back again next Thursday. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.